friend from Busan. Busan has more.
Busan people.
At the same time, sometimes Busan people are
It will be crazy.
So I understand the people is like a little bit more cold sometimes.
My taste, the men are more handsome.
제가 볼 때 서울에 놓은 좀 사람들이
Maybe in Busan people are more.
I love both.
According to my friend from Busan and my other friend, they say that Busan has more handsome men. But I think that's just because my friend is from Busan. But men are good everywhere. I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't really looking at the men or the women when I was there. It was lovely though. But I've noticed that the people are a little bit more outgoing or a little bit more assertive in Busan. Friend who's from Busan, the way he even started walking changed. He was very much like
I would say the food is more like seafish than Seoul, and the weather. Like there's a lot of wind in Busan, and sometimes when Korean people like speak Korean, I can understand something, but Busan people, I don't understand anything. Like they have a big accent, I don't understand anything.
I've lived in Korea before, and I lived in both Seoul and Busan. Seoul for about a year and Busan for maybe like 9 months. And I think for me, being Australian, I prefer Busan because I like being close to the coast. I really like the beach, and I think the weather in Seoul was too cold for me in winter. But I think Seoul is very convenient for foreigners, and there's always a lot of things on and things to do, and more people speak English, which helps as well. In Busan, I found it was a little bit more of a challenge because 한국말 잘 못해요. So I think it's similar, but also you can feel like a different kind of vibe between two cities. But also I think at the same time, sometimes Busan people are more friendly. Yeah, even though their English is sometimes not as confident, but I think often they're more keen or willing to like help you as a foreigner. Sometimes Seoul I feel like is a little bit cold or people aren't as like open, but when you get to know them, all Korean people are lovely, but just my experience.
I've been in Busan 2 times and here in Seoul like 2 times too. And I think the biggest difference is the amount of things that you can do in Seoul that you cannot do in Busan. In my personal opinion, because I really like nightlife and also like more young kind of stuff to do. And I think I have more fun in Seoul than in Busan. But there's also a very peaceful thing about Busan too. And also another thing that I noticed is that the people in Busan, they are more chill and they are very charming. And with every people that I talk in there, like in the cafes, the service, they are like very smiley and they are very charming and I don't know, I felt very, very good. But here in Seoul, which I understand because it's big city and life is very like you rush and there's a lot of tourists coming. So I understand the people is like a little bit more cold sometimes, not always, but sometimes. Yeah, I think that's like the 2 differences. So I think it's that, yeah.
I think it's different, it's dialect, like Korean language. Because when I visit Busan, I didn't hear really good like Korean because 1 year ago I started learning Korean. So I'm little understand and the Korean people and my friends say it like it's different how to hear. So it's so hard when you don't know Korean and you live only in Seoul but will visit in Busan, it will be crazy to understand people. And food of course, I think because it's near sea, so have a lot of seafood and like different taste. And Busan, it's like big city too. But for me, it's like feeling more like chill because sea is really near. I have a lot of beaches and really good place and like different. So I like it. Like I don't know. For my soul, it's like more like I don't know Korean Miami maybe. Yes, maybe something like this or no Hawaii. No, I think Jeju it's Korean Hawaii. So it's like Korean Miami.
I think there are a number of differences. One is going to be the pace of the city. Seoul is a lot more fast-paced and a lot more, hurry up and go everywhere. Busan is a little bit more laid back and it's a little bit more relaxed. But in contrast, the people in Seoul are more indifferent, but people in Busan, they're very nice, but also they can be very aggressive, a little bit more aggressive than Seoul. I like Busan. It's a nice laid back place and it's not too crowded, not too rushed. It's very relaxed, and if you want to head out, be near the beach or be in a quiet area, it doesn't take much to go and be by yourself in nature.
About the cities, for me, Busan is more preferable because it's more calm, no more dynamics. You just can chill, have your time, go to the seaside and relax. I really appreciate it. I now wait for my express to Seoul station, and then I will go to Busan for my vacation. Yes, and a little differences. Seoul dialect and Busan dialect are quite different. I was talking with people from both Seoul and Busan, and they have different manner of speaking. I don't know if it is is only my perception or it is really exists, but I can feel it. And for my taste, the men in Busan are more handsome. They look very good. I think it's just because you're from the sea salt. They just breathe the fresh air, work out very much, and look so good. They're taller, but I don't know. Maybe I just met someone who was taller than guys from Seoul. Yes, so Busan boys call me. Seoul men are also fine.
저 생각해서 서울에 좀 빨리빨리해요. 사람들이 너무 복잡해서서 네, 부산에서 천천히 살아요. 그리고 사람들이 너무 좋아서 그리고 네, 바다도 있고 분위기가 예뻐요.
One weekend I was in Seoul and one weekend I was in Busan. I liked it personally in Busan more because it's more like landscape, sea and beaches, and Seoul was really nice too, like urban place, very city-like, very high buildings. Seoul, they are more English friendly, so I understand more, but I was fine in Busan too, everyone helped me, so in Busan more Korean. I loved both, was Busan.
I think Seoul is more of a busy city, but I feel like Busan is like where you can chill out a bit. Like you can still do everything you can do in Seoul, but it's still you can chill, you can relax. There's the beach, and you can just listen to the waves, and it's very just nice to be there. I don't think there's difference. Maybe in Busan people are more chill. I don't know, but there's more like fish in Busan. Yeah, seafood. Yeah.
For me, I feel like Seoul is much more crowded for sure, and also there was a lot of tourists here and I saw some familiar faces. Maybe in Busan a little bit more Korean vibe, and I have to say that in Busan I tried a lot of food in the market. There was food that I never tried in my life, so it was very different from my country. And then here in Seoul I tried the barbecue, that it was also nice, but I did like more the Busan food. Crabs, deep fried crabs, and also the pottery with it was a seafood on the top. That one was also very nice.
제가 몇 번 서울하고 부산 갔는데 제가 볼 때 서울에는 좀 사람들이 복잡도 많이 있고 부산에 갈 때는 서울처럼 별로 복잡하지 않고 근데 너무 작았나 봐요 부산은. 그래서 서울에 갈 때는 높은 건물도 봤는데 그런 건물은 부산에 별로 안 봤어요. 그래서 서울 너무 소리도 많이 있고 부산에 그런 이런 거 없어요. 그래서 그게 달라요.
I feel like Seoul is a lot more busy than Busan. It has a lot of things to do. Well, they both have a lot of things to do, but Busan is more slower paced. If you don't want fast pace or a bunch of people, Busan is a better place. And also down by the water is a lot nicer as well than in Seoul, more city life. I love the slow pace. To me, food and the people is not too much different. I like the food a little bit better in Busan because it's more seafood. I love seafood, so that's why I like the food better in Busan.
I think the Seoul weather is more cold as compared to Busan. And second difference is in Seoul, I think the total population of the Korea is maybe 60% live in the Seoul and maybe the 20 or 30% live in Busan. And third, maybe 20% or 15% live in Daegu. This I just feel.
I think what's different between Seoul and Busan is the fact that Seoul has a more of like vibrant culture compared to Busan. Busan is more like ocean, beach side, also is vibrant. But as for Seoul, it's more like street culture, you know, like clothing, you know what I'm saying? The nightlife also, yeah.